Good afternoon. To present the news, my name is Mubanga Chumambo. The headlines. CTPD concerned over developments with regards to the exploitation of gold resources. Solwezi youths have bemoaned the lack of employment in the district. Pressure is mounting on the British Prime Minister to act over his senior aide's lockdown trip as the cabinet is to meet later to discuss plans to ease restrictions. And football is waking up from the coronavirus shutdown around Europe.
Joy FM News. Truth in defense of freedom.
And now the main news in detail. The Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD, says it is concerned over developments with regards to the exploitation of gold in the country. CTPD senior researcher for extractives from the recent undertakings, it is clear that Zambia does not have a proper plan. Mr. Banda further says that deriving maximum benefits from the gold resource should go beyond the Karma and ZCCM holding partnership. He has since called on government to put in place systems that will ensure that ordinary citizens duly benefit from the gold resource.
It is not clear as to why ZCMIH has gone ahead to partner with Kama Limited when many Zambian-dominated mining enterprises are crying for the same opportunity. The government needs to clearly underscore its material motive here. This will go a long way in shaping a progressive conversation in the gold mining sector, but more importantly, to limit the speculation by various stakeholders. Government can only partner with a foreign-dominated mining company when it has exhausted all opportunities and avenues to partner with a local citizen-driven company. The following questions need to be immediately addressed by government. Firstly, is the partnership between Kama and ZCMIH aimed at equity financing?
GEAR's Initiative Executive Director McDonald Chipenzi has accused the police of attempting to frustrate intra-party democracy in the country. Mr. Chipenzi has charged that actions by police to stop a UPND planned party election are also a frustration because it is a constitutional requirement which leaves much to be desired. He notes that stopping political parties from holding their internal elections by police instead of facilitating their holding is a clear disrespect of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. Mr. Chipenzi states that the political party conventions are constitutional and the behavior by the police to frustrate their holding is likely to derail the processes. He says instead there is need for collaboration between police, health authorities and political parties involved to avoid any derailments on account of not following the COVID-19 guidelines. He has since advised political parties to provide timetables for holding these elections in advance with the relevant authorities in order to avoid last-minute cancellations.
These party conventions are likely to be derailed, especially if collaborations between the police, health authorities, and police is not encouraged and facilitated. With the limited space for assembly and expression in this country, coupled with the advent of coronavirus, its rules of social distance and limiting the extent of the police denials to conduct their intra-party elections. The net effect of such will be costly internal elections due to reschedulings of these events, which may be beyond the reach of many political parties in this country.
Caritas Zambia says it is disturbed that the country has in the last 12 years been witnessing a breaking down of governance institutions and an erosion of democracy. In a message to observe Africa Freedom Day, Caritas Zambia Executive Director Eugene Kabilika says human rights are being abrogated even though the country is in a multi-party system of governance. He further notes that political opponents of the ruling party are also being harassed and prevented from mobilizing and freely selling their ideas and programs. He says these are disturbing and retrogressive developments which are also slowly inducing a culture of silence and fear among citizens. Mr. Kabilika has also noted that what freedom fighters fought and lost their lives for is being taken away from the poor by the rich and powerful. He has charged that the country's land and natural resources are slowly being taken away from poor Zambians and given to foreigners and those who have the money. He has further questioned how poor farmers are asked to surrender their valued land for alleged development only to be demarcated into plots which are sold to other people who have money. Mr. Kabilika therefore calls on head persons and chiefs to stop grabbing land from their people and selling it to others and foreigners. He says a product of a true democratic culture is a freedom of assembly, a freedom of movement, conscience, and a freedom to choose genuine leaders in a society. Mr. Kabilika adds that in the absence of true democracy, Africa Freedom Day will remain like any other one of those days of resting. Meanwhile, Transparency International Zambia TIZ Executive Director Maurice Nyambe says Africa Freedom Day provides an opportunity for the continent and for individual countries, including Zambia, to take a moment to look back and reflect on strides that have been made in different aspects of society. Mr. Nyambe has noted that Africa is a continent that is awash with natural resources, yet its countries remain some of the poorest on the face of the planet. He says this is because those that have been tasked to manage the resources on the continent have not done so. Mr. Nyambe has since called on African leaders to depart from the rhetoric that has characterized their response to the challenges that have continued to ravage the continent and individual countries.
Challenges such as corruption, challenges such as poor governance, challenges such as the reducing civic space, and many other challenges that have continued to ravage our continent and individual countries. Being a local chapter of a global movement that is dedicated to fighting corruption and promoting good governance, we as TIZ take a particular interest in Zambia's efforts to fight corruption and eradicate this scourge. So we would like to reiterate our call to the Zambian government to step up efforts to fight corruption, as we believe that environmental well-being in ways that will make it impossible for citizens to enjoy their freedoms.
And Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia, Emmanuel Mwamba, says Africa should not be bound by the history of the past of slavery and colonialism, but celebrate the success that it has continued to score. Mr. Mwamba says despite the celebration of Africa Freedom Day coming amidst the coronavirus, it is important for Africa to celebrate the liberation of the continent that was obtained at great human and material cost. Mr. Mwamba has said the theme of the commemoration, Silencing the Guns, creating a conducive conditions for development in Africa, is timely to accelerate Africa's economic and social development. Mr. Mwamba has also said he was particularly pleased that Zambia continued to be a shining example of peace and unity on the continent. He further said it was pleasing to note that the roadmap on the flagship program of silencing guns in Africa was first adopted in Lusaka, Zambia. He adds that this is an indication of the recognition of the peace and the country's historical role played in the liberation of Africa. Mr. Mwamba, however, notes that the COVID-19 pandemic has presented a threat to Africa's development and must be fought aggressively. This is according to a statement issued to Joy FM News by the First Secretary for Press and Tourism at the Zambian Embassy in Ethiopia, Inutu Mwanza. Solway's youths have bemoaned a lack of employment in the district. The youths, most of whom are said to have completed school and have now been turned into brick mortars, have told Joy FM News in Solway that government in 2016 promised them more jobs, but to no avail. They have since appealed to government to fulfill its promises by creating jobs.
I completed my grade 2 I can't even see a job. There's no job. I tried to light an application, but there's no job by this time. By this time, mines, they are just only those people are coming from other places. They are only people that are getting job in Soresa.
2021 at least tikuvota mangwena atipromise nawe nemuna vote tukayingiza nyidimu ila nye tunayinki vote atwingiza nyidimu ani so tulakulomba ku 2021 nyidimu ikavuliku mangasanga mayouth munu mkombo ntuna avuli nyidimu kosi nyala mashima shukora mavuli pepa ina kutokera kama itarawo.
Let's take it to that. Take it to that. Let's take it to that. Let's take it to that. Take it to that. Let's take it to that. Let's take it to that. Take it to that. Let's take it to that. Let's take it to that. Take it to that. Let's take it to that. Yeah, baby. Apple Max. Cool, real, and natural. A quality product from Californian Beverages.
Imbira nsoma kubalimi bonse mwe bava mu kitundu kya Lubemba ate mu Northern Province akampani ka Pioneer kamletelako imbuto ya mataba ipya ile itwa P3812W. Imbuto ila papa ba makombo ba mataba yalikosa kuchilala na kumpese yaliba iyabeka kabiri nangula inflata ilokile kufikapo yena ila mmena nokukula ifo ba Pioneer City Company twasumino kutilati inflate waffe na kalya lelo chaba nembuto mwabika mushiri eicho byale nimbuto ya Pioneer P3812W pakutila mwinga kampurwa kabiri nokumletela obukumu buntu mukabila imbuto ya mataba iya Pioneer P3812W ile sangwa munchende shonse umushishiwa imbuto ele na madepo byale nimbuto ya Pioneer nokumona obukumu.
What? They only sit for a bumper harvest. Quality CD.
And now, international news.
Pressure is mounting on the British Prime Minister to act over his senior aide's lockdown trip as the cabinet is to meet later to discuss plans to ease restrictions. The BBC reports that senior Church of England bishops and a scientist advising ministers on the pandemic have strongly criticized the government's handling of the row. Acting Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey said it undermined the Prime Minister's authority and Labour has called for an inquiry. Boris Johnson has defended Dominic Cummings, who travelled to Durham. The Prime Minister is this week expected to set out details of plans to ease restrictions. And the coronavirus pandemic has pushed Chile's healthcare system close to the limit, according to President Sebastián Piñera. According to the BBC, almost 70,000 cases of the virus have been recorded in Chile, and more than 700 people have died. The capital, Santiago, which is under a strict lockdown, is at the center of the country's outbreak. And finally, in some sports. Around Europe, football is waking up from the coronavirus shutdown, but it is different to before for players and supporters and is changing behind the scenes too. While the German Bundesliga returns in stadium devoid of fans, the sport is preparing for an economic crisis that will impact all levels of the game. That will be particularly visible in the transfer market, where it has become the norm to see leading clubs splash out €100 million fees. Demian Komoli has observed events from afar, having left his role as Turkish club Fenerbahce at the Turkish club Fenerbahce in January. The ex-Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur sporting director told AFP he foresees fees dropping by between 30 and 50% as compared to the usual prices, and a reduction of 70 to 75% in terms of activities. According to SuperSport, the loss of clubs from match day revenue as a result of games being played behind closed doors will impact budgets. And on that note, we come to the end of the news. But before we go, the headlines once again. CTPD concerned over developments with regards to the exploitation of gold in the country. Solwezi youths bemoan a lack of employment in the district. Pressure is mounted to discuss plans to ease restrictions, and football is waking up from the coronavirus shutdown around Europe. On that note, we come to the end of our main news broadcast. Our next bulletin comes to you at 15 hours in the news summary. Until then, my name is Mubanga Chimambo.
Comprehensive, in-depth business international.